All right, so I just got done with the final FLW Costa Series Northern Division event of the season, the regular season anyways, the Points Trail, and it was on the St. Lawrence River this year at the beginning of September, which is a little later than we've been there the last couple of years. This is the time of year I really like to be up there. I was really looking forward to this event, especially after Erie. I actually stayed off the water on Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence in between events. Usually I put in quite a bit of time, and purposely stayed off the water this time. I didn't want to get too locked into following fish that had moved and had been there a couple weeks ago. So I know the place well enough to where I just decided to stay off the water, use my practice time to break it down, and if I had to, run kind of by the seat of my pants during the event based on what I saw at the current time. I really had a tough practice, actually. I don't think it was because of that. I just made some poor decisions. The sections of the lake I decided to fish were, I definitely did chase too much history and try to make a couple patterns work that definitely weren't working. Working with my roommate, we were trying to process the information together, and I think we were just trying to force something that really wasn't there. So kind of struggled out in the lake. Did catch a few fish bouncing around, regular stuff on a drop shot, and some fish shallower on a swim bait, but for the most part I stayed fairly deeper. And in the river, I practiced 2 days in the river, and the first day was really tough. I caught some fish early, and then didn't get anything else going the rest of the day, and ended up going back up the river to that same section the day before the tournament because I felt like I was around the right area. It was an area I fished in the past and I felt comfortable in. My roommate had caught some fish in the area a couple days prior, so I really felt like I was around some fish. Went back there the day before the tournament, and I had about 10 bites. The ones I hooked and set the hook on were really good fish. I had a pretty good limit of fish that day if I would have taken my best 5. So I decided to start up there. I felt like in the lake I was going to need some fairly calm conditions, and I was going to have to cover a lot of water to catch a big bag of fish. And the first morning was supposed to be a little bit choppy. It was supposed to calm down as the day went on, and I didn't think I'd be able to get around as well as I needed to catch that big bag of fish. So I decided to start in the river. Ended up not being the right decision. I only caught about 16 and a half pounds that day. I was definitely around some good fish. My co-angler had 21 pounds, and a couple of the other boats in the area caught a big bag of fish, but it was just kind of like Lake Erie for me, where it was just a bad coincidence on the wrong day where he was hooking the big ones and I was hooking some smaller ones. I pretty much in the river I used a Ned rig, and I used the exact same one I used on Erie. I still had it tied on actually, and it worked pretty well, and I just kind of liked the way the profile of the bait looked for the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence, and I was catching some fish on it in practice. 5/16 ounce Kitech football head, and it's a new one again, the same one, so it's got the double barb bait keeper on it, and you don't have to use as much glue. Your bait stays on there really well. Fish can't pull the bait off there. Gobies, more importantly, can't pull the bait off there very easily. Gobies will really get on the tail of a Ned rig very easily, and softer bait they'll rip right off of there. So, or a bait with or a hook without as good of a keeper, they'll rip right off there. I used that salty core stick again. Still had them. I had some still left over. Again, unfortunately, they're not available anymore, but it does make a really good Ned rig bait. It's got a lot of salt in it, so it is a little bit buoyant if you were to use a little bit longer piece. I used about a 3.5 inch piece, but a little longer piece I think would work really well. The tail would stick up. I used watermelon candy again because I like that green pumpkin with the purple and green in it, and it has black flake in it as well. 5/16 ounce head, pretty much stuck to that because the current that's what worked best in the current. I just wanted it bouncing along the bottom. It's important to keep it bouncing so it doesn't get hung up. You get hung up really easily with too heavy of a weight, too light of a weight. The current will just wash and will never hit the bottom, and it'll wash right under your boat in that river. So I caught probably 20 fish the first day. Again, I don't know why. I just couldn't hook any, couldn't get any big ones to commit really. I don't know why. My non-boater was throwing pretty much the same thing in the back. Again, he had 21 pounds. It's just kind of a bad coincidence. So day two, I said I'm not doing that. I'm not going to mess with that river again. I'm not going to take the chance of that, and I'm going to run the lake. It was supposed to be dead calm, and I just said I'll run every ounce of gas out of my boat if I have to cover the water I need to cover. And it was perfect conditions. I ran to my first area wide open and caught about probably 18 pounds in about a half an hour. And in the lake, I was using a drop shot, and I used a couple baits. I used the 4-inch Shad Impact, which I used the new Goby color. Just a good bait. I used a 3 or 4-inch. I actually used them both. I used the 3 and the 4-inch a little bit that morning. Had both rigged up. It didn't really seem to matter. Goby color again. Just pretty much dropping it straight down on fish that I would see on my graph. And I went to a section of the lake that really didn't have many boats around. And I purposely did that because I didn't want to get on top of the leaders since I didn't have a very good day one. I don't think that's a very good, thing to do. I knew where a lot of the leaders were fishing. A few of my buddies were in the top of the event, so I made sure to stay away from those guys, and it really helped. Got me on some fresh fish. It got me on some fish that were more willing to bite, and I know a lot of those guys were struggling dropping down fish and having them not bite. So that area kind of cooled off, and I fished 2 or 3 more areas. I didn't have much going on, and I don't know, something was just telling me to run to an area I hadn't been to actually in a couple years. That is typically good this time of year in early September. And I ran down there, and I got there, and there was a guy on it throwing live bait, and he was catching them pretty regularly on crawdads or minnows or something. And it was a good sign because I knew the fish were there, but it's kind of frustrating when you're in a tournament, you're stuck on 18 pounds, you need a big bag to try and catch up and get a check, and a guy is live baiting next to you and really catching them pretty easily, and you can't get anything on artificial. So I milled around the area for a little bit, ended up bouncing about a half mile away from him to something that was very similar, and sure enough, the fish were loaded up there too. I did have a little more trouble getting those fish to bite, so I just started firing through baits. I would make a cast. If I saw a fish on the graph, I would either make a cast or drop down to it. If he didn't bite it, I'd put another bait on and drop down to it, put another bait on and drop down to it until I finally got a bait that I got a bite on. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it was the 3-inch Easy Shiner. Maybe it was something to do with the little subtle paddle tail kick that this has. I used it in Goby. It was the same color I was using in the morning on the other baits. Again, drop shot. I just use a 1/0 hook on it, about an 18 to 24-inch lead, and then a 3/8 ounce. I used a 3/8 ounce weight. I was in about 25 feet of water, and it was dead calm. I didn't need to go any heavier than that. So I used that 3-inch Easy Shiner, and like I said, I don't know why, but I fired through baits pretty much every cast until I hit one that they bit, and I caught fish steadily for the next hour to 2 hours on that Easy Shiner till I ran through every single one I had in the boat. And I caught a limit that weighed 22 pounds, 1 ounce, which was enough to bump me up from, I think I was in the 90s after the first day, and I finished 31st in this event. Got a check, got some really good points, and it put me in a position to qualify for the Costa Championship on Lake Guntersville. I finished the year 18th overall, which really I didn't have a very good finish in any one single event this year. I didn't really have anything super bad. 60 something, 69th I think at Lake Erie was the low one of the year, which that's not a good showing. I was really upset with that finish on Lake Erie. But, it also wasn't a triple-digit finish or anything like that. So those 3, mediocre finishes put me in 18th. That's just kind of how fine the line is between doing well and doing poorly. If I go out and I catch 18 or 19 pounds on day 2 at the St. Lawrence, I probably finish in the, 60s and probably finish in the 30s in points. If we get to go out on Lake Erie a couple days, maybe I catch a big bag day 2, or I just land a couple of bites I had on day 1. Maybe it bumps me up 10, 15, 20 places or more, and you have a top 10 finish of the year. So you really got to be opportunistic. You got to have the right baits on. You got to have the right tackle. You got to make the right decisions. You got to get to your fish, and you got to put them in the boat, most importantly. And I did a really good job of that day 2 at the St. Lawrence. And like I said, that 3-inch Easy Shiner, I like a swim bait. I like a little 2.8-inch or a 3-inch swim bait. On a drop shot, something I did quite a bit this year. I usually do it on bedding fish or shallower fish, but for whatever reason, these fish were a little bit deeper and they really liked it. And I did see a couple of the top finishers on the top 10 report were drop shot and a little bait like that too. So something worth thinking about. Pretty good year overall. Happy with it. Really looking forward to going to Guntersville for the championship. That should be a time of year when swim baits and umbrella rigs and stuff like that shine, and that's definitely stuff I like to do. So can't really complain. Not a bad year. Hope this helps with some baits at the St. Lawrence River in Lake Ontario next time you're there. And check everything out on KiteTechUSA.com.